Well, welcome to Dr. Margaret and Reverend Katie Speaks. How are you on this fine evening, Margaret?
I'm fine, actually, except for a little soreness in my mouth, so excuse me if I lisp a bit.
No, that's cool. Tonight, you are listening on Soma Fusion Media. We are broadcasting to you live worldwide. You can find us over on Facebook and YouTube on the Soma Fusion Media channels. You can go find us on the Facebook page and multiple other places you can find us and listen to us this evening. Tonight we'll be talking about healing. I have to write it down for a second there. We're talking about healing, the psychological states of mind in terms of sabotage. And we all know that sabotaging ourselves and the people that we are around or seeing other people being sabotaged can be greatly affect our well-being, not to mention our psyche. And I'm going to pass it over to Margaret to give you the lead in on what we are going to be talking about this evening in a little bit more depth. Give you an introduction.
Well, actually, when I came up with it, you were already in cahoots with me because we pick up everything at the same time, and we should say we're mediums. Basically, I was reminiscing back into the late 70s. 1970, when I was very well known in England and traveling all over Europe and stuff like that. And I was remembering all my psychology and psychiatry and all the stuff I'd studied and coming into the vibration of sound and then into the reverberation, because sound, we know, like if you go in a cave, it echoes, right? And so I came up with this. We need to understand how we create sound or we receive sound, and it's constantly reverberating in us, and we don't realize it's tied into the beliefs and the feelings. And back then, in those days, I watched so many people sabotage themselves emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it was like a whole new concept in those days, that you had to be aware of what you thought, what you spoke, what you did. And today, of course, we're much freer. So that was it in a nutshell. And I'm throwing it at you, a later generation, of course, and you've been studying that over time, whereas I've been the pioneer in doing that. So I thought we could share the two sides. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we like I said, we all sabotage ourselves. I know I'm guilty of it. We think what we think we can go and obtain. We might have a dream that we want to do. We want to travel the world or meet the president or something like that. But then along the way, it's only just part of the human experience that we have those bumps and hurdles that we get along the way. And of course, now as a younger generation, we have a lot of distraction, and that distraction leads us to going a completely different direction, and not necessarily in a good one. It can lead into self-sabotage of, it could go into drug use. It could go into having too much sex. It could be having watching too much TV, or uh, going out and partying too much. It could be any of those number of things.
Mm.
A lot of people, we have addictions, and that goes straight into addictions. We're all obsessed with our cell phones.
Well, I want to chip in here and say that, when I said going back to 1970s, that was the flower power, and, everybody was high on the marijuana and it was all illegal and so on. But we were still working with mind your P's and Q's, pleases and questions, because you had to behave right. So these 1970s, and I want to say I had babies and everything, so I wasn't really into it. And the flower power and all these things that happened was a deep message for the overlap of the Piscean age into the beginning of the overlap of the Aquarian age. And that's when the Beatles had that song, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. But let's come back from that amalgamation. You just gave us a long, long list. And it's true, they're there. And I want to have you come forward in that in time. But you got to remember, back in those days, in the 70s, you were ostracized if you said one word out of a situation. Oh, like if you are going to a fair or a rock concert or something, you are not normal. You're not normal going to that kind of event, because you're supposed to be going up to the church or whatever the church is funding and putting on or something. And we were all set in boxes, little boxes, and there was that song, Little Boxes. I can't remember singing it, but I remember my husband singing it to me. And and he actually thought all our houses in England were like little boxes because everything's small over there. So what were we doing back then? Okay, I'm going to give you a little example. I'm told I have to walk with my head up, I have to hold it back and look like a lady, and I can't slump along, and I have to wear the right shoes and the right clothes to appear at the right place, right? And then you get all dressed up and you go there, and then you bump into people who were dressed unfittingly, which to me, I thought, well, I like jeans. I would love to wear jeans or whatever it was, but you would believe, because of what you've been taught, that your point of view was right. So you would say to someone who's a bit younger than you, because I was old enough to have younger people around, and say, excuse me, but why are you wearing jeans? It said formal dress, Yeah. And I would listen to them saying, well, I'm a rebel and I'm this and I'm this, and they go on and on with a long list. And I'm listening because I want to learn, from them, their idea and their point of view. And I'm watching. They're defensive. They're absolutely defensive they're expecting me to annihilate them with the rules. So that's a big point. And I think we should start with rules, don't you?
There's always been rules. I swear, if I broke the rules back when I was growing up, I got my mouth washed out with soap. Or spanked, whichever way. And that is all about minding those P's and Q's. I was still in that era, going from the 70s into the 80s. I was being brought up that way. Then going into the 90s, like my younger siblings, actually, they were more of the modern millennials that we know of. But I've still got that very much 80s mindset. And I don't, in terms of the modern times, it was more or less, I remember my sister used to sneak out to go to parties and nobody cared. But if I did the same thing, I would be scolded for it. And so, the two different, same generation, but two different eras. So the 80s and the 90s here, being brought up, same family, being brought up two completely different ways. And you see that the boundaries and the rules given to two different or one generation with two different eras is completely different. And it's really mind-boggling, because that shows that a lot of us are going with the times in terms of making up the rules as we go along. And when we make up the rules as we go along, we tend to sabotage ourselves again, because you're not sticking to the standards of what you create.
Mm. So, I know one here right now that I'm doing, and this is concrete since the dawn of time, as far as I can believe. No matter what you're doing, no matter whether it's technical, agriculture, or stoneman, is you say you want to do something, right? And I told you about this earlier. And so I sit down with all the enthusiasm in the world, i.e., in front of my computer, um, and I'm raring to go, writing a book or whatever I want to do, and I'm full of enthusiasm. But underneath that is my brain running a memory tape that I was trained to believe years ago, that you can only do what you're trained to do. So the idea of actually in those days sitting down and trying to do it on my own was a negative, because my brain was saying, I haven't had the training, so I'm going to mess up. So why bother? So, but then I'd override that with my enthusiasm. And I get there. And as I start doing it, sure enough, something comes out technical. I don't know what I'm doing. I call you, of course. But I'm frustrated. And so I don't know what I'm doing. And I can hear myself actually talking out loud saying, oh, I'm not good at this. And I immediately don't want to continue with it. So there I'm sabotaging consciously with my effort, which is physical, my vision, which is saying I can't see it, so I can't understand it, literally seeing it in brain or seeing it physically out there. And then hearing, maybe I'll go to a video and the guy's telling me, use B. And I'm, what the hell's B? Where's B? Because everything's short now. Like when I was young, I had Parkinson's disease. Now it's called Ph.D. Mm-hmm. So, all of this for me in my generation it's so easy to go online or do whatever I want to do and tell myself I can do it, and then come up against one block, I don't know it, and talk myself immediately in downgrading myself and telling myself I'm not good enough, I can't do it, call Katie. And that's what we've got. We've got to a point where if we don't know it, we expect someone to help us. But on the other side of the fence, going back to the 70s, if you called someone for help, they would probably help you or even do it for you, which wasn't so good either because you don't learn it. But today, if you talk to someone, they'll turn around and say, oh, I'll do it for you, but it's $4,000. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. That's a material thing. I'm just giving two things where we think about money and we think about ability. And as soon as we see the price in money, oh, I'll have to work 4,900 hours to get that money. I'll never be able to get that many hours. So I will never, ever be able to own that. So I won't try. I'll give up. And I'll tell myself, go to the church bazaar and buy some secondhand clothing, which I did for years. And when I got into, I don't know, turn of the century, I was actually calling maybe a bit before that, but I was saying I am the secondhand rose with secondhand clothes. And I still will buy secondhand clothes because sometimes people's car sales are nice. But that all goes with the new generation who, if I can't do it, there's somebody else, there's something else. And the pace of life is so fast.
Yeah, and I've noticed too, there's a very good quote that I can quote right now. What you resist will persist. And the reason why I say that is because we tend to look for the easy way out. For me personally, though, I've never had that problem because I've spent my life being mostly outside of formal education and autodidact. And so, for me, I can pick up and master skills just like that. And I don't have to even think about it. My brain is automatically in problem solving mode. And so the mechanics to fixing problems for me it comes naturally. And so when I see other people and they go and I look at them and they're like, oh, I'm just gonna give up.
Mm.
It's like it's really, really disappointing to see people do that, because again, what you resist will persist. It means that you are continuing to keep on going on with those, with whatever
Mm.
you're resisting. And so you are naturally holding yourself back from learning anything, let alone doing anything that you
Mm.
want in life.
Mm.
And so I hear so many times for people that I've spoken to, and you probably heard the same thing, is that people have lost their passion. They've lost direction. They've lost the guidance that they've needed to reach their dreams. When I've spoken on many shows regarding, this, the sky is the limit. I'm like,
Mm.
no, the sky is not the limit. Stop limiting yourself and saying and teaching yourself that the sky is the limit. There's a whole wide universe out there. So why aren't we climbing that ladder? And that's the whole point of personal growth as well. And why aren't we climbing that ladder
Well,
to?
you're making a very point. I'm going to interrupt you there because the sky's the limit. There were many, many, many phrases like that. Some even passed down from Copernicus and people like that, and they're repeated and repeated, and the children are told it and told it, and you believe, like Confucius stuff. There's too many but his stuff was good, but it wasn't good to our times now.
No, because what it is in the box thinking. It's keeping us in our comfort zone. It's keeping us in that the four walls of our psyche. The psychology behind that is stepping out of the comfort zone and then living. And
Mm.
a lot of people don't know how to live either. So therefore, you're holding yourself back.
Mm.
So it's not about having, if you want to go on a road trip, it's not about so much about having money or the logistics of it or anything like that. Of course, that's a part of it, but it's not stopping you from actually planning to do it. And
So I think it's time we went into the understanding of infancy. In fact, I was thinking about this when I was showering this morning. When we get a newborn baby, we automatically, say it's diaper changing or something, we automatically support the body and under the armpits while we're gently moving baby off the table onto something else, right? And baby's like, goo, 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 and nobody thinks anything about it. But on a cellular neuromuscular memory level, the brain is remembering what it felt like to be touched under there and lifted, okay? And we don't know because babies don't have any judgment about it hurts or it doesn't hurt. So, you might be picking up baby and this time they cry a lot. And it's like, what's happened? What did I do? Well, I'm not talking about what mother does and rationalizing. I'm talking about what the baby is doing while it's being picked up like that. The brain doesn't have words yet, but it knows uncomfort, it knows discomfort, it knows love. It feels these words, this energy. It's a vibration. And I talked about in the beginning about resonation and reverberation. So I'm bringing it back there. That the first sound that we really make is crying. That's through the throat because you want dinner or uncomfortable with potty, and then we might have someone in the room who's I was talking about pro-life, pro-choice, pro-spirit, my book, the other thing I just did on my other show. A baby doesn't have the idea it's good or bad. All it has is the feeling it's comfortable, it's uncomfortable. They don't even have it hurts. So we have a lot of cellular neuromuscular memory, right, from all the touching we've had, encompassed with mother, father, Tom, Dick, and Harry, the guy down the street, whoever it is throughout our life, telling us those little sayings, you remember, like the sky's the limit, or telling us that, grade school, I had this all the time, you'll never be a writer, your writing is terrible, and today I have 18 books. And, I was dyslexic, but I didn't know it because nobody knew what dyslexia was till another You know, my kids were 7, so that had to be after I was born in 42, so we have to look at 30 years later. And even then, when they discovered dyslexia, they didn't understand what they were looking at. I did a lot of research on that, by the way. I won't go into that now, but part of that was looking at the association with cellular neuromuscular memory related to the nervous system, touching, feeling, responding, in other words, up into the brain, together with the 5 senses, seeing, hearing, touching, and so on. And when you open that sort of topic in its worldwide, again, religions, philosophies, it's all different. We're looking at, well, back when I'm going fast forward here, when I was a young teacher in my 20s to 30s, 40s, it was all about discovering the way the mind works, you know, conscious, subconscious, and deep subconscious. Before that, they only had conscious and subconscious. They didn't know about the deep subconscious. They didn't know about the oneness. You know, God was up here with all the people on the right-hand side of God. We do not have any of that belief system anymore in the generations being born. And yet, the generations gone before them, grandma, grandpa, great-grandma in some cases now, because they're coming in real early babies. So what we've got is the history is trying to teach these youngsters old history, but they don't want that. They want new history. They want what's happening now. So we are programmed negatively.
Yeah, and I've noticed that too, because that's why the easiest emotion to reach is anger. Anything along the anger spectrum, and we might be talking about anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, rejection.
Mm-hmm.
What else am I thinking of? There's a whole heap of emotions. I'm not going to list them
Well,
all.
cast out, isolation is a big one because we cast out ourselves.
Yeah, abandonment is another one as well, a very, very big one. And then betrayal, dishonesty, and the list could go on
Yeah.
and on. And of course, that's the first emotion that we have, because obviously when we are babies and a baby wants something to eat, they're going to cry and cry and cry and cry. And when they're not tended to, they're going to get angrier. Well, we see it as a form of crying, but they're going to get louder and louder and louder and louder. So the first emotion that they don't know happiness until maybe they're tickled or something, or cared for, or hugged, or loved, or whichever those it may be. But the first emotion we technically learn is on the anger spectrum.
Well, think about the wars, you know, World War One, two, and before. The men, they have to drive themselves up to go to war. Women weren't fighting, remember, in those days, unless they were pioneers and had a rifle or something, but killing off Indians or something. But generally, for the whole world before that, it's the men that went to war. The women followed in encampments somewhere behind. And then after they'd done the battle, they would then go and find the wounded, bandage them up, try and salvage whatever coin or whatever was there, and live off the remnants of the dead bodies, basically. Can you imagine doing that today? Yeah, it's so far removed, and yet we still think like we're at war. We still think that, you know, someone is going to come up to our house. Well, we have examples of bombs and stuff, you know, but we really think that someone's going to come up and destroy us in some way, emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually. Because if you think of going to war, and now let's bring it forward to Israel, where they have women fighting, and this is the year of women, so we have to include that, and we are women. So women are now taking their place side by side with men. And yet grandma is still teaching granddaughter, find a nice young man. He'll take care of you. He'll pay all the bills and you produce babies, right?
Yeah, they didn't have no.
But you see, the bottom line is nice young man wasn't a nice young man back in the 1800s, because
No.
he was in anger, coming back to your point. In order to go into that field, he has to have the rage to kill everybody because they pinched his land, or he's trying to conquer their land, who knows what. But the state of mind, can you imagine rushing in to this field full of soldiers or rebels or whatever, sword in hand, swinging your sword around, running your brain power that's saying, I'm going to win this, or I'm going to go down dying, whatever. And I hope my kids are fine, and I hope my wife survives if I get killed, and all this kind of stuff going on even in modern times. And there's a wife, well, if he gets killed, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the bills? And all this stuff is going on.
And that's when you get fear.
Mm.
Fear.
That's my point, fear. So the anger goes into fear.
And
Yeah.
we go into, and we break into that mindset very, very quickly. In fact, fear that to have a relationship, fear to have a child, fear to buy a house, fear to lose our bank accounts, fear to lose our car, fear to lose somebody else, a loved one, fear to lose our homes and we end up on the street, fear to lose, the list.
It's endless. It's endless, isn't it? I know over the years, when you think about the fact that you're doing the radio shows and the many that you've hosted and done as well, you're making your generation have a golden opportunity anywhere on a computer, anywhere on the phone, anywhere. Whereas when I was a child, you got BBC 1 and 2 and no television, okay? And we got to listen to what mum and dad wanted to listen to, which is usually the news or some political something, which bored me out of my mind. And so the point here of this is, back when I was born, and because it was 1942 and the World War was on, it was very limited. I mean, for example, can you imagine having to put black drapes on the window up every night? And this, I remember one tiny little time where I went to peep out, and I got 3 adults, leave them alone. And I realized, because I was only 2, but I realized even in that moment, because I had spirit guides with me always anyway, that it wasn't, I wanted to see if there was any planes in the sky, because I've been taught there's planes coming, And so I'm looking behind, but I realized when I look back at them, I could see their auras, that they were afraid they were going to die.
Yeah.
And that's one of our biggest fears when it comes to everything else that's piled on top of it is, I'm either going to die a real death, I'm going to die an embarrassment scenario where maybe my boobie's hanging out, or I'm going to die something like that, or I'm going to die in front of this audience because I don't know if they like what I'm going to speak, or I'm going to die because I'm on TV and I don't know which camera I'm supposed to look at. I mean, I've been through all of that and caught myself and thought, what am I doing? Why am I just having the fun and enjoying the moment with it? So my point here, being an older generation and opposed to you coming in with different coding, is that where I'm lagging behind, it's because I never had classes or anybody teaching me. So, when I was in Japan, I would flounder around and find ways to do my YouTubes or something. And it was least simple then. But as your generation's grown up and the kids, like my grandchildren, 2 years old, they get on mum's phone and they're going like this and they're doing this. And I'm like, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for something. And their speech is perfect.
and here's the thing is that your generation thinks that it's unfathomable how my generation can have the speed of light in terms of learning and mastering technology, or other things just in general. But then my generation sees the next generation, i.e. my children, and I'm like, I think I'm old now. I'm like lost. Like I'm like, how the hell? I'm saying the same thing to the next generation, and
Mm,
I am over half your age.
I know, and I'm telling you that Spirit's telling me that because we're getting closer to the sun indirectly, that each golden age that I talked about, you know, like the great ages of it, people don't know this. I want to spend a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
When people get into astrology, they look at the 240, 50 years approximately, which is the internal clock that's going round. And say, well, for the next 100 years, 200 years, we see this, we see that. Or for the next 2 or 3 years, because they're coming on a smaller thing. But if you think how there's 12 houses, and if there's approximately 230 about, you know, there's no fixed numbers exactly because the planets are shifting all the time. So if we got 12 times 230 periods of the internal cycle, you can see where Spirit's giving me the numbers from. I mean, I'm just going to do it easy. If we have 25 times 10, okay, 250 years, and we got 2 more, so another 20 is 290 years, which is approximately somewhere around between there. They're saying the Aquarian age will be. Whereas back in the Aryan age, there was more like 300 years to go around in the internal clock. But the bigger clock is these great ages. And so where you have to wait for it to go around to 12 houses and all the planets visit and do their thing. And so they're the real changes. So if we go back to Abraham, okay, what do you think? He was a soldier, first of all, fighting other tribes. Right? What do you think he thought when out of the blue the voice of God comes, right, and says, "You're my soldier, and you're going to go off and do this"? And we won't go into all the religion philosophy of it, but was it just as crazy for him to think that as it is for someone who is a medium today, who suddenly starts getting pictures and thinks they're hearing voices, who comes to me and says, "I think I'm going insane"? Is there any difference?
There really
No,
is no.
there's none. No,
No,
the things we deal with are different, but inside we're the same, right? So bearing that in mind and coming forward, I asked Abraham, what was he doing up the mountain trying to kill his son? And he told me it wasn't the way the Bible's taken it, and I'm using this as an example because you'll see it in families all the way through. He's waiting and waiting for God's voice, and God's not talking to him, and he's tried this and he's tried that, which is the same as someone saying, "I've got my tarot cards and I've got my kids and they're playing me up, but I'm telling them be quiet, because nothing's happening, and I'm talking to friends, I'm trying to understand what's my next step," right? Well, coming back to Abraham, then he finally comes to a deranged state where he says, God must want the most precious thing I have, which was his son, because his wife was barren, he was given a son, right? So he says to Isaac, "We're going to go up the mountain, and I want you to carry all the wood. We're going to make a presentation to God, and offer sacrifice." And so the boy's carrying all the stuff of the fire up the hill, and he's feeling like, how am I going to do this? I know, God, I've got to do it. And you can imagine the state of his mind when you're thinking, I have to kill my child, but I don't want to kill my child. Okay. And then he gets up there, and just as he's he's explained to his son, "I'm going to kill you." So he told me. And the son, because in those days, the son does what the father says. So there's no resistance, right? So, okay, I'm laying down, that's going to kill me. I'm nervous as hell. And then all of a sudden, some wild goat sheep, whatever you want to call them, come around, and suddenly, okay, it's a miracle. Well, not really, because they did live up in the mountains. But in the time for Abraham, it was a miracle because they came along. So he killed one and made an offering. And the lesson was not about hearing the voice of God. The lesson was about understanding his own voice, his own state of mind. And he went on to be one of my major teachers for me through the teenage to adult years. and you know, with studying psychology and things like that. And so, can you imagine today a mother saying, I haven't heard the voice of God, or I haven't heard from Social Security yet, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So the only thing I can think of is I'll just put us to sleep. We'll just go to sleep. I'll give the baby some medicine, and, you know, then we won't have to deal with this world. Okay. And then out of the blue, someone comes rushing in, bangs on your door, attacks you from all points of view, rushes you off to hospital and saves your life. Well, that's what it was like. We can imagine it from our time, what it was like for Abraham, or Abraham as he likes to be called, to be going through that in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here we are, the same problem. We want to hear the voice of God, so we go and see a medium, or, you know, back in those days, we go and see an oracle. But why aren't we finding it in ourselves? Because they're too busy thinking and chopping our emotions around.
Well, not only that, you know, anybody that was deemed a psychic or a medium or anything of the sort, we got to go back into the days of witchcraft where we were condoned for having heard an epiphany or having heard a voice. It's not. I mean, I don't get it. Why is that? You know, specifically the more mainstream religions condone having voices in our head or listening to our higher self, as opposed to listening to quote unquote God.
Well, I think part of, you know, our problem in our time is we don't have time with the computers. Everything's sped up. Okay. Um, if I go back to before computers, for the analogy, we had time to get up in the morning, eat your breakfast, do whatever, go off to school, come home, do your homework, go out and play, come in, have a nightcap, mummy maybe tell you a story, something happening. Oh, I'm so tired, I've got to go to sleep, you know. Now the kids don't have all that. It's get up, take your pie with you on the bus or whatever you got, you know, eat it on the way, and then go through your schooling, and then it's come home and do more schooling, and then it's all about online. So you're looking like we're looking at this screen. Where's the socializing? Where's the interactions? You know, and you know, I'm still counseling all the Japanese a lot. So, you know, I learned a lot by going to Japan, because their style of living, not criticizing it, it's the way it evolved out of the wars, was old tradition, like arranged marriages and things, with new idea of Prince Charming coming along, and they melded that together. And so they had an arranged marriage with a man or woman that was supposed to be Prince or Princess Charming.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the nut that kept them together? Business and babies.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it now, even in America, every woman has a business of some sort she's doing. So
Yeah.
babies don't get that original 100% mother attention. And mother doesn't understand that she's stressed and overwhelmed because maybe hubby is not earning money, is not Prince Charming, or maybe he is, but he's living on a rig out in the ocean somewhere. You know, she's carrying the full load.
Exactly, and we've got a lot of and not only, I mean, we do have two income. That's not neglecting the fact that we do have two income households as well, who can do and can have a successful family, but again, the woman is the one that's doing the double work. The woman is the one that's condemned for everything that she does in certain circumstances, not all, but certain. And I say this is because what we do as women, we go out, we work, we start our own, there is a lot of educated women now that are actually, and this is due to COVID, starting their own businesses, having startup, pioneering new fields. And if they're pioneering new fields, it may be some old fields that have been resurrected again. There, and of course, we're on like the queen of Wi-Fi. The queen of Wi-Fi, meaning that a lot of women now can successfully raise a family, stay at home, run their business from the seat of my computer. Like I'm sitting at my desk every single day. But for me, that is something that is not accustomed to for someone like you, who was brought up where there were no computers whatsoever. But in essence of talking about women, women have a double job, and it's what a lot of people tend to forget. Women is what brings, well, it takes two to tango. Let's not forget that. But it takes women to bring a child into the world and to nurture them and raise them, as well as bring income, even this generation, income into the family. And so we are essentially having a paid job and a free job, which is a free job that is running 24/7 for the rest of our lives, pretty much. And or unless your child just flies away from the coop, which we hope.
That happens. They leave home. Yeah.
Then they come back.
Yeah.
But that's a lifetime. And then of course we've got our work. You know, we dedicate ourselves to work because that's as a woman we nurture what we create. And so, and it's no different to raising children. It's the same thing, same creation that we input into our businesses as well. And
but
so,
you know, let's stop you there for a minute. I'm going to interject because
go ahead.
With that fast-paced life, there's always a love deep inside self that you want to prioritize. And as you start to try and do that, XYZ comes in. Okay, now you're trying to multitask. And we used to brag about that, you know, I'm multitasking. I can't multitask anymore, I tell you. I get off in another direction. But I want to come back to, no matter what we're doing, we're using our body, right? And so as you like, I've said this in many classes and courses I've done, if you put your hand up, please miss, want to go B, and you're 3, and she doesn't let you go and you wet yourself, you will be struggling for bathroom duties every time you go in the closet, the cupboard, play tennis, anything that you're using your hand up, because your brain still says, I want to go to the toilet. So part of what I found was very important, and I think it's very important to share with people what they can do about it, because when you know that you're stuck in a rut with the old history and you're still saying the things like my mum and her mum used to say, I wish I was dead all the time. And I actually ended up saying that, and I did die. But it was a good thing because I came back and I was different and doing better work. But you know, we tend to copycat and live out and believe those things that we hear because it's in the muscles, it's in the cells, it's in the nerves. The whole body is functioning as a unit. You can't take your brain off like a hat and put it over there.
And this is that, you know, we've got in terms of advertising, we've got the same thing that happens there. I think it's somewhere between 23 or 26 times. If we repeat something 23 or have something repeated to us,
21 times.
Is it 21? Okay, there you
go.
I knew it was something like that. But if we repeat that many times, we believe it to be true. So therefore, it becomes part of our DNA. It becomes.
But do you know why?
Because we're sheep? No, I'm kidding.
No. Seriously. Again, that was something I learned years ago, that when you're 3, as we start 3, you can count 1, 2, 3 on your finger. Oh, you're a very clever girl. But can you do 5? Can you do 10? Oh, very, very clever. Can you do hands and feet? 20. Can you? Wow, you're so clever. What comes after 20? I don't know. Well, 1 again, 2, 3, 4, 5. You learn with your fingers, your digits, your body to count. And when you get to 21, your brain goes, oh, I know that. I know 5, I know 10, I know 15, I know 20. And so you accept it. Now, let's twist that around and say, you're now in the store. Remember I said you want to buy yourself something and you see the price. Well, let's say that you're looking at it and it's $50. So that's 5 times 10, right? You don't know it, but maybe while you're touching it and you're moving your fingers and you're thinking how nice it feels and all of that, you're actually stimulating each of these fingers to send a message all the way up to your brain box that is encoded with every bit of history you've ever done, where you've been picking up clothes, thinking about wearing clothes, and before you know where you are, your brain's amassed all that with images, and you remember some image you saw years ago in another dress, and you think, it's not quite as nice as that dress, but then again, it's, rationalizing, right? And then you start looking at the money and you're thinking 5, 10, and your brain automatically is going to go, where can I make that money back? When will I find that money back somewhere else? And so by the time you've done all this feeling and touching with this dress and trying it on, and God knows, you're exhausted. And now you're talking yourself, I don't really need this dress and I don't like it so much and I feel really miserable. I'm getting a headache. I need to go home. Sound familiar?
We actually get home and we get buyer's remorse. Yeah.
Yeah, we get home and then we wish we bought it, right? But the thing is that I want to get across to people that cellular neuromuscular memory is constantly working, and as we justify out of our mouth, rationalizing whatever we're doing, we are running all those history tapes in our entire being, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and practically. And we have to sit back and go, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I browbeating myself to know more than I need to know? Why am I emotionally tearing my heart and soul in half over a dress? Why am I afraid that I won't look right in my old dress when I go to this event I'm buying it for? And everything, as you pad your thought about what you want to do with your self-talk and all the rest of it, by the time you've gone through that as well, your body isn't just exhausted. All you want to do is go to sleep. I don't even want to go to the event.
And that goes for people too. I've noticed, sometimes the brain has really only a capacity for short bursts of information. For instance, I know I'm guilty of it. I do 3 to 5 hour shows at times. And it can be very, very information heavy. But after the first hour, people start to really go, it's only those who are committed to learning would stay along. But even that's just, my show is just one example. But go back to days in childhood when we all used to sit at our desk and we'd say, yes, teacher, we're learning, blah, 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 blah. And about 15 minutes in, we're like, I'm going to sleep. Because your brain does not have the capacity to take on and process information unless you're like me, who can choke the chops off of somebody and continue on. I'm a natural at it, but that does not compare me to other people who can't do it. And there are many people out there that can't do it. They don't have the DNA capacity to take in and absorb information, to learn from it, so that they can master themselves.
Well, I don't think it's so much they don't have. I'm going to correct you there a little bit, Fred. It's not they don't have the DNA. We all have it. It's just that they don't know how to tap into it, I think would be better to say. Yeah. But they do know how consciously to tap into the RNA, because the RNA is learned in this world. So if Mum, for example, always did the washing at the sink by hand, then and Norma, my friend, is an example of that, and we were actually talking about that, and she told me she actually enjoys doing the washing up by hand. And she would do it every night when she stayed with me, whereas me, got a washing machine for it, I'm going to put it in the dishwasher, because I didn't grow up with a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, that was a novelty, and it was something I could take in. But her mother didn't adapt to a dishwasher. See, so she just kept washing dishes because she liked, and so Norma was telling me she liked to do it. And I said, do you really, 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 really like to do it? And she said, yes, because the water's running and I'm switching off from everybody else. And then I could see what she was talking about, self-hypnosis. She just goes into this la-la space. And for anyone that's listening, we go in and out of hypnosis every 20, 30 minutes. So about 3 times in an hour where I go, what was I doing? What was I thinking? And of course, as we get older, we will have more of them because we're slowing down and we don't, my thing is I can't find words, and so it depends. You see it I've seen it in youngsters a lot of in Japan actually, where they won't even go to school because they get so overwhelmed with the mindsets of I can't do something, somebody's going to tell me off, somebody's going to bully me and so on, that they can't even get out the door. And the mothers are yelling and screaming, you've got to go to school, and they just lock their door and they won't come out, lots. And you know what else I saw in Japan or back in the 90s? Mothers were coming to me saying, my child's deaf. Mm-hmm. It was psychological, closed down. They literally couldn't hear. The mind was not processing the words coming in. They could hear, but they weren't hearing it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was psychological deafness. And nobody even believed that you could have that, because you can't stop talking. So why would you stop hearing unless you've been hit over the head?
Yeah.
But think about it. There are people who won't talk. They won't talk. You say, what's that? What's wrong with them?
Yeah, but that we're talking about selective hearing here, or just actual psychological deafness?
It's a psychological deafness. They actually cannot hear anyone because they've switched off. I don't want to hear anyone. That's how powerful the mind is. And people don't realize just how powerful the mind is in terms of selective listening, watching, hearing, feeling. I'll give you another one with vision, because I do it all the time. I've put something down and I've gone running off elsewhere and I forgot, like my phone, and I think, where did I put it? And I'm walking all over the house trying to find it. Well, when Steve was alive, I could call it, and know where it was. But now I'm on my own, so I can't. Okay. And I can tell you there's been times where I've remembered where I was, I remembered where it is, I've gone to exactly where it is, I didn't see it. And so I thought, it's not there, and I've gone away, and I'm hunting all over the house again, and gone back later and found exactly where I left it. And I had the same thing when I was a young woman with 4 kids who were boisterous as hell. And I'd be sewing or knitting, and the scissors would disappear. And I would say to them, who's taken mummy's scissors, and of course they're not supposed to. And we get up, look around the sofa, look under the sofa, look everywhere. And then we go looking for new scissors because I can't find the old scissors. And then come back and there's the scissors. And I'd say, who took the scissors and put the scissors back? No, it didn't. Well, guess what? There's 2 levels of activity that I experienced. One was I visually didn't see it. And 2, spirit guides took it and put it back because they were trying to teach me, pay attention. Mm-hmm. And they use scissors because they're dangerous. Yeah. So sometimes psychic things happen as well, pushing it over in that direction.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the same analogy for people who lose their glasses. Where's my glasses? Where's my glasses? You're searching and searching and searching. I can't find it. And they're on your head.
I've done that too. Yeah.
Your cell phone. Where's my cell phone? It's in my pocket the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, those are habits where you're just forgotten. I'm talking about the spirit body in your body working. And so when they're saying they're not hearing, they're deaf, And they do test them, like put them behind and do this and whatever, and there's no flinching. They're wearing sensory things, no flinching, nothing. So, you know, they decided in the psychological aspect that it's switched off by the spirit. Their spirit is so depressed, so miserable. They don't have the courage to kill themselves, so they just are like a wet rag in a skin body, and they don't want to use it. And so when the spirit switches off in the body, it's in a way a clinical death, in terms of that symptom. Okay, but it is, you know, think of the baby. When the baby comes in, you've got to understand that a little bit more, which is why I did that pro-life, pro-choice program recently, and I've got the book, remember. So when a spirit comes into the body in the quickening, you feel as a, you know, woman, you're feeling, you're carrying this little butterfly flickers, right? Mm-hmm. It's the spirit that makes that move. The baby hasn't had any lessons in how to move, you know, and it's a tiny, tiny little thing at that point. And by the time you've gone full term, that baby is punching you in the belly. You know, they're doing their robotic exercises in there, right? It's the spirit body that's working the brain and working the muscles. So when you pop out into the world, and you're now born, you're using psychometry, the sense of feeling. So you're feeling your mother, you know it's her because you've been inside her for a long time. And maybe you know daddy, if daddy's been a modern daddy, who's putting his hands on tummy and talking to you, so you know daddy's voice. Then, you know, you hear other people. So you're familiar with sounds, but it doesn't mean you understand what they are. Yeah. So all of this psychometry, clairvoyance, clairaudience, that people say, oh, I want to learn it, I want to study it. And clairsentience, smell and taste, which comes after you're born. So you taste the food that you're eating and smelling it. Okay, but the first three, psychometry, clairvoyance, and clairaudience, are stimulated very much so by the spirit body into the physical form. And so when we're knowing that, and then we've got to fast forward into the future where a child switches off by choice out of fear, pain, anger, guilt, loss, and goes withdrawn, that the brain is able to be spiritually switched off, which is a spiritual death in the body without dying. Okay, and I've seen a lot of those cases in mental institutes, and then of course they put them on drugs, and that makes them even worse as zombies. And that was long before they learned about NLP, hypnosis, you know, all these things that we do today. So children like Tourette's, I had a patient with Tourette's, short version of that. I was able to heal him for that day, and his wife said it was the only night that he was able to stay in bed and sleep all night and like a baby. But I had no power of his spirit. Okay, his spirit was drained of, you know, he was like picking up paper, touching everything, moving everything the whole time he was in session with me. Okay, that is a compulsive condition of the brain, stimulated by the spirit, trying to get help. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of kids out there right now. I'm worried for them because they're latchkey kids. It's not that their mothers don't care, but their mothers are locked into the computer, or they're locked into their work, or father's gone, or whatever it is, you know, different scenarios. But those kids are not getting the understanding that the RNA could be harmful to them, and street gangs and all the rest of it. If we want to get rid of all of that, we have to teach the children to understand that they're in charge, they have personal power. And most of them don't believe they do. No. You're an exception. You could tell a lot. You could teach a lot of that.
Well, that's what I do on a daily.
Yeah.
That's one of my gifts. No, I teach that a lot because I don't have, I have personal boundaries, but no boundary that stops me from succeeding in every area of my life. And a lot of people don't have that kind of perception because we sit there and we analyze what we could be doing, and we just don't do it because we're stuck in that fear mode. And then when we are stuck in that fear mode, we're stuck in blaming ourselves and playing victims, like, well, finding every excuse in the rule book of life to say why we can't do it.
Exactly, which is what we were saying in the beginning. And, you know, I also think that in many ways, the books and we write and the things that we put out there, we're not the only one. There's hundreds and thousands. I mean, when I was young, there was no books. Now you go in the store and there's thousands of books. But, you know, so in a way, I'm not putting that down, that's good. But everyone has their own point of view about how they see their spiritual ascension, how they see how they're going to rear their children with their spiritual ascension, philosophy, the theology, spiritual, church, whatever, you know. But we all owe it to educate these children to understand that the computer, as much as it takes us on there morning, noon, and night, if you don't know something, it's up there somewhere. You can search and you can find it. So in another sense, the difference from my generation growing up, you go to an adult and say, I heard the word something, what's it mean? F-U-C-K. I never heard it. And then I saw it written on the wall and I still didn't know what it was. It took a boyfriend to tell me what it was, the real reason for the word. But to this day, I still, you know, it's a well-used word and they made a program about it. But to me, it's because I learned in the beginning it's a bad word. I don't want to say it. So when I finally got so mad after I clinically died and come back, and I was still dealing with the old issues, I actually used that word for probably a year on and off because I thought it might make me better, but it didn't. It was just another word, because my point here is we have connotations on any word. It could be it, or is, or she, or me.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to, you can't really find what it is. And if someone put all your words in one phrase, you know, let's say I got upset about cats because I've had cats and they've died. All right, let's say I've got an upset about how I look after my cats because the vet keeps telling me something different and so on. By the time I've got through my little list of what I don't agree or agree with, I can be in that rage you're talking about. I can be in that anger. I can be absolutely not going to listen to anything anybody says. Stubbornness, that's the next word I wanted to share. Have a go. Stubborn. What do you think about stubborn?
Guilty. No. But no, we're all stubborn. We're all stubborn in our own ways because we refuse to believe ourselves the way forward. We're just stubborn. We I don't know how else to say it without repeating myself. We are just stubborn. We're stubborn.
Well, on another side, positive, it could be good to be stubborn.
Well, true, but a lot of the times, though, due to the upbringings that we have and the way that we live our lives, a lot of us tend to be stubborn in the fact that we are very, very hard-headed in taking an approach to the way that we do things, and the way that we wade ourselves through the muddy waters of life itself, because we can't believe that we can't believe that we could ever succeed.
So you see the loop, you came back to the loop, you see. Everything in psychology that we know now comes back to the spirit. But we didn't know that. I keep banging my table and that makes my camera move. You know, every time I've gone into a psychological, parapsychological, or psychiatry level of dealing with people, I always find the core underneath is the inhibitedness, if that's a word. The inhibited part of self that says caution, I don't know, I'm stepping into the unknown, I'm afraid, or I'm volunteering to go forward because I'm not afraid, but I am scared of whether I'm a leader or not. You know, there's always some mode of fear on one, you know, it may sound positive, but underneath that is always going to be that fear, but stubborn. It gets you out there.
Yeah, well, that too, and if you notice that the way that it's been explained, and I don't know if the listeners can hear, but the way that we're explaining things, we can bring up any word or phrase that can explain what we are talking about here tonight, especially on the subject of sabotage. And no matter what we do, the human psyche will always go around and around and around in circles. And when we get out of that going, it's called a revolving door. And when we see that revolving door, we do exactly what the revolving door does, goes round and round and round. So no matter what I'm trying to tell you guys tonight is the fact that it is a revolving door, the revolving door of life, until we wake up, whack ourselves over the head, metaphorically speaking, and understand and have a different approach or a different perspective to life. Then we can only break out of the mindset that have kept us broken and caged and within our comfort zone, so that we can become liberated, and we can transmute all of those excuses that we had and turn them into positive, successful projects, or whatever you want to call them, life's bucket list.
Yeah, and I remember using the word bucket list when I first heard it. And I thought, what the hell's that? It seems such a funny thing to say, but what I was going to say is that, you know, there may be some people listening to us, and I don't know if they know they can call in. I don't know if we set that up this time around, but we do want to let people know that we're going to be doing talks on these kind of topics for a classroom scenario, where we would really, you know, discuss more about this. We're just screwing on the surface here, giving people an idea about, you know, how the psyche can sabotage us, prevent us from being what we want to be and doing what we want to do. And I'm going to come back to myself for a minute. You remember I said in my book, My Journey into the Oneness, that I was born psychic, a healer. And you can read about that there. But the thing was, I knew it consciously when I was 2, because Spirit told me I would have a school. And of course, the school in my mind was going to kindergarten. And I nurtured that through the years to a bigger school, you know, I went to a church school, so it was kind of that small, and then I went to a bigger school and so on. And so by the time I got through being a medium and teaching and traveling all over Europe and places like that, and then coming to America and doing even more, I always felt I got to build a proper university, because that's what I saw. Cambridge, Oxford, you know, these big, you know, and then local ones in our town. And that's what I carried in my head. And here we are about to launch what we're trying to do, which is a university online. And here we are giving diplomas and so on, you know, to people who study with us. And this is a new direction for studying. Of course, your young ones are studying with their teachers online and so on, and they're in and out of school. We know that we need the physicality of contact. No matter who we are, we're contact humans, we need contact. And COVID has taken that away from us. But in another sense, we haven't, because you could see my face. If you were watching my face and studying my face and you'd learned NLP, you would be feeling me, wouldn't you? You would feel my energy. And that's one of the things that people need to understand from a spiritual point of view, that we can feel anybody anywhere through psychometry, from spirit to spirit, heart to heart, mind to mind, soul to soul. And of course, the soul group has thousands and thousands of people we can empathize with, and I was just saying to one of my friends here about a month ago, they had all those people rallying together to justify changing the rules and regulations, not just in America, but it was happening in India and other places, trying to get rid of their old bosses and get new people up, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
Well, that takes a collective soul group. And what does that mean? The collective soul group from the oneness, they're all in agreement. We want new rules, right? So with the Aquarian age, and we've been talking about that, I'm bringing us back to the kids being born, your mummy to kids being born, they're going to group up. And we've never seen really full groups coming together to change the world. We've seen uprisings and people put them down. We've seen more uprisings, people put them down. But this time around, they're not going to be able to do that because these kiddywinks coming in, it's not a few thousand, it's billions of them because there's billions of us down here that
Exactly.
are all over the world are going to say, we don't want the old ways. We don't want the Piscean age. We want the true Aquarian age. And the true Aquarian age is listening. And when we listen, not this, we have to look and see the eyes and see the facial expression and see the body language and really pay attention. And that's what psychics do. And this is the first time since the Aryan Age, which was the Egyptian period, where we've come back to being psychic, being aware of our psyche. And so, I just want to say here that we're going to teach and talk about the psychic ability on easypeasysolutions.org. And we've yet to put a date out. I don't know if you're in mind for May or June yet. You haven't told me.
Yeah, I will. I will definitely let you know. And of course, like I said in the last show, we will let everybody know when those dates will be.
Mm,
But they will be coming very, very soon. I'm just updating a couple of things. A lot of the stuff that we are upgrading are basically just technical stuff. The stuff that is technology upgrades basically because we are a platform that is doing it online, so therefore we have to make sure that Zoom or the our video capacities can be properly functional. Our emailing capacities for homework is functional. We have to
mm,
make sure that students have the access to perhaps log in and all of that jazz. They have to have access to the information, and so that because we can't be when we get a when you're running a school, you can only do so much as a teacher, but when you are running a school that could grow in numbers, you can't be functional 24/7 and make sure that every student is catered to one on one.
mm, mm.
And so I need to make sure that technology is set up, and so that's why it has been taking a while. But nevertheless, we will be starting teaching very, very soon, and we'll give out the links for that. And of course, there is a sign up on the website. If you go over to the website, you can either go up to easypeasysolutions.com, universalchristchurch.com, no, easypeasysolutions.org, universalchristchurch.com, and the Samaras Education Center.com, and you can see a lot of the courses that are already up. There are a lot more coming as well, because Margaret's got new courses and some old courses that is being resurrected as well as my own courses, which are very, very extensive. Um, I'm just like Margaret. I am not an easy teacher either.
Mm.
It is we are looking for students that are very, very dedicated to learning.
And that's true, because I was saying to someone in Japan recently, I said, we're charging for the classes, but we're not charging, thousands and thousands of dollars
Exactly.
because we don't believe in that. There's been a whole market of people coming online and saying, come and join this for $35, and then you go on and they practically tell you nothing. And then they
watching, and there's no one-on-one teaching. You're not learning anything. All you're doing is watching a video.
yeah, and then they tell you, well, it's like when you go online and you want to say talk to the bank, it's you get some clerk who's just reading the rules. I don't want that. I want us to have slides. I want to have one-on-one repartee with the classes so that we can, Zoom allows that, so we can talk backwards and forwards. I was just wondering, is anybody calling in? Has just anything today? Because we didn't actually promote it in a hurry, did we?
I can.
We haven't opened that up.
I can put a call out. It's all good.
Okay, so while you're fiddling, I'm just going to say that with Sumara's Education Center, that's for people who are more spiritual. They want to understand their psyche and they want to understand how to coach someone from the emotional, mental, spiritual point of view. Whereas if they come onto Sumara's Education Center, when I put that class up on psychic development, this will be intense. They will be really doing a lot of understanding of the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual aspects of the oneness, how they tap into it with all the five senses, and a lot of practice to ultimately be a medium. And that takes 5 courses to qualify. So you can see it's not something you're just going to come in and learn a tarot card reading and leave. So, this is for people who truly want to achieve a very high quality of education. There is a couple more sites online that are doing this as well. So, we're not alone here and we can't cover everything. We don't expect to.
No, exactly.
But we do want teachers, don't we?
Yes, we do. We do want teachers that are very, very dedicated to their work. We don't want them to be teaching what we teach. We want teachers to be proven to have. We don't want teachers. Okay, we want teachers to teach. We want them to teach their own courses, but we don't want them to just talk. If that makes sense. Just talking because you know about something is not teaching.
No. So it's like, just a simple thing I did the other day where you put your hands together and you try and feel the energy between your palms, and what you get is hot and tingly. And then if you pull your hands further apart, you can feel the energy. The more I take mine apart, if I go off screen and I'm out here, I can still feel. You can't see my hands. I can't even pull it in, but it's out here and I've got it turned in a bit. I can still feel my hands. The same as if I stand them in front of me, I can feel my aura. These are just simple things, but when you are here in your mind, that you can actually feel your own aura and you can feel your own energy, that opens your brain up immediately to, oh, there's a skill I didn't know I had, and yet you've used it since the day you were born.
And it's the very same reason why we do this when we pray. It's also, or why we fold our hands, or why when we go to, let's just say, let's go Christian mainstream. Why when we go to church and they're doing this out to pray, the energy. It's always about the energy transference. We don't, pastors, ministers, all that kind of stuff, they don't go like this for no reason. They're doing it because it's a form of energy transmutation.
And I want to tell you too, if you think about all the churches originally, not so much now, but back in the old times when they really built them to last, the altars were made of stone. And when you lie on stone, there is natural stone that's been cut and put there. What you're actually doing is you're letting your whole body be healed if you were to lay on that altar with a shift in your cellular neuromuscular memory caused by the energy that's in your body already being affected by the crystalline crystals that are in, because we've got crystalline energy in nearly every stone we have on this planet, because it's a glass, right? And glass is known as a vibrational tool, and it's been used for thousands of years. So people used to come out thousands of years ago with their stone and say, the gods have spoken. Okay, but actually what they were doing was they were listening to their psyche, they're listening to their spiritual self, the energy coming. And then, of course, if you know your energy in your 5 bodies, then you're able to know if someone invades your space. So let's take a blind person, for example, and they're sitting at a table with their backs to the door, and somebody comes in real quietly. Okay, it's not making thumps with their feet or anything. I mean, just really quiet. And yet they know, they can feel the energy in the room has changed when that person walks in the room. And they'll say, hi, Alice, or whatever her name is. And they know it's Alice opposed to George. Okay. Well, I teach people to be able to do the same with their spirit guides, so that they know who their spirit guides are that come in and work with them. And then you can build a relationship, with the guides. But, as you ascend too, you as the same you're in school, in kindergarten, you don't want the same teacher when you're in high school, right? Because you want better news and better information. So in the same way as you study your psychic ability, you're going to have new spirit guides, but they aren't always new in terms of the entity. So, for example, Archangel Haniel could appear to me as, I don't know, a black slave in a life that he lived or a life someone else lived, because they can borrow it, and do that. And a lot of the angels appear in the white shrouds because we believe they should have a white shroud. And where do we get that from? Some priest telling us that they saw a spirit in a white shroud. So then everybody believes I have to see a spirit in a white shroud. Well, one time it was Siddhartha Buddha actually did this, and he appeared and he had no clothes on. And he was a full body, and I could see all. And I didn't know who he was. And I thought at the time that he was a native from a country where they walk nude, like Australia or somewhere, but I couldn't see all the features because he was like from a distance. And I said to him years later, because I got to know him and obviously worked with him over time, I said to him years later, why did you appear all naked to me the first time? He said, why not? And I said, well, at that time I was, you didn't show yourself, it was all private and so on, not like today. And he said, that's not the point. And I said, well, what was the point? He said, you had to get the lesson to be naked, vulnerable. And I realized at that time, this is years ago, but I realized I was vulnerable, but I didn't admit to it. Whatever I was doing in my life, I had this front. And so people would come up to me and say, Margaret, you're so clever, you're so confident, you're so this, you're so that. And I'd always reply with, no, I'm not really underneath, I'm really quite quiet and retarded and shy, whatever. Well, I finally realized, with this great gap between what the spirit guides give you something and they let you go through all these ups and downs. And then you finally realize all these years later that, hey, I am naked. Okay. And it's not literally you are naked, though I did literally have. And we used to go to the female spas in Australia. No, sorry, not Australia. You're thinking about you. No, in Japan. And women all walk around naked, nobody bothers, nobody looks at anyone, but eyes down. Okay. And that's what made me notice that nobody was walking tall, So I said to Mary Kanai, who's one of our ministers and will be teaching online, I said to her, I have to stop slouching, I have to walk tall and naked. And it's so strange because you don't You think you're walking tall in your nice dress.
Same time too, being naked can also be the equivalent to being vulnerable or being
Well, that too, yeah. But I'm just saying, I got the message finally that it didn't matter whether I had clothes on or not. My stance, my walk, my confidence, my in body, my spirit in this body, I have to love it. You know, that's what I was going through at that time back in the 90s. And instead of, oh, I've got lines, what am I going to do? You know, it was like, oh, I've got character in my face now, you know. And so I started to really learn from the oneness with marvelous spirit guides. I had so many actually coming and going. And I never even asked them for their identity because there was so much. But over time, going back to what I was saying, I could see that Siddhartha was giving me many faces, but it was him. But you see, if I'd have had the same face, I'd have expected the same lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we teach people, I want it to be like that, even if we're not in trance or anything. I want them to know that our face is not stuck in, this is all. You can take us off in another direction. We like that. We want, the more you can ask us questions, the more we can go, throat chakra, we can go into different directions and share more information, because then we know what you want.
Yeah.
But if they don't tell us, if they don't ask questions, we're going to come off at the class and think, well, that was a good class. Nobody asked any questions. They must have understood me. But, but you don't know, do you?
Always one that comes back. But no, but thanks. We, you know, you just advertised that most Australians are naked, so that's all good.
Actually, I don't know why I was seeing that Australian guy in the distance, which was Siddhartha. And I just thought of spas, you know, you've got a lot of hot spas and things, haven't you, in certain areas, like Palm Springs does. I just had this picture of people going into spa. But, well, it's getting to be winter over there now, right? Maybe that's what they're doing.
I don't
know. Well, natural. There's another thing about that too. Natural spas with all the body salts and things in it is really good for your body right now.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'd just love to go to the Dead Sea just for that.
Dead Sea, yeah.
The Dead Sea.
And then you can lay there and you don't drown.
Yeah.
Do you know about the Bible? Was it the Bible book one? There's about 4 of them now. They've learned the Bible code. That's it. They've learned to read the 4 books of Genesis and you know, thereafter, whatever they are, Exodus and so on. Mm-hmm. And they actually found with a computer, and they broke it all down. And the thing is, everyone that we know about history, they can find very easily through the old, scripts back from the ancient times. So, like, they had Kennedy's death, and on the same page was the person who killed him, right beside it. Have you seen that book?
No.
Well, I want to tell people out there too. Now there's programs in every language. And I was seriously wanting to buy it at one time. It was about $400, and I didn't have that kind of money. And I don't need it, you know. But there's another thing. People were buying it, if they're well known, like I was reasonably well known. You can put your name in, and it will find you if you're in there, right? So you know you're going to leave a mark in history. But if you're going to be killed by somebody, it's also going to be in there. And so people don't want to know if they're going to die or what age they're going to die. So a lot of people don't get it. They'll get it. They won't research themselves, but they'll research other people. And it's amazing how many of the famous people, in quotes, whether they're good or bad famous people, come up in those books. And the writer of it, I can't remember his name right now. I've got the books. I was thinking I wanted to read it again. The last book he wrote, he was saying he'd come to realize that he was the guardian of the code. And since then, there's been a lot of other people written about it. But the point of my mentioning the Bible code is this is so different from the philosophy of a Catholicism or, Hinduism or whatever. This is explaining how the future is known because the past is known and all is now.
Do you think that that if the future was known, that people would go deliberately out and intentionally to sabotage what could be the future rather than actually living in the moment?
Exactly, but that's what they were saying from reading the book. You see the text and they loop it so you can see where they're talking about, because you can't read the language unless you study it, but it's there and he explains it all. But if you're not done your history bit, then you can't see all of it. Mm-hmm. With whatever they're doing, I don't know how it works, but there's a mathematical program. And so let's say my crystal acupuncture and pterogram therapy is recorded in there worldwide. It would have those words in there. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that the computer program is numbers, remember?
Yeah.
And so it knows how, I think it's amazing how people can work this stuff out in their brain boxes, but to write the code, for it. But it will find the words that are all on the one page. If your words go over 20 pages, it's still a message, but it's not actively happening right away. Something is what I understand from it. So in terms of we've done, the stubbornness, and we've done the fear, we've done all that stuff. We are going to be doing something where we're going to talk about relationships because everybody is messed up. So do you want to go there for a little bit?
Everybody's messed up. Oh, God. Just out with it, Margaret. Just it's okay.
Well, I mean, how can you know your life when, like you go out and the store says you can't go in there unless you've got a mask. And I'm going, oh, I have to go back to the car, find my mask, put it on, and then I go in there and then I'm breathing away and the thing's all fuzzing up. My glasses are fuzzing up and I can't see anyone. I think, I don't want to wear this thing, but then everybody's the law's the law. We'll see. Arizona, they've now made it easier because more people have been having the inoculation, or whatever you want to call it. I'm like, I haven't had it. So, I'm supposed to still wear it, but as people have had it, they don't have to wear it. And I was still wearing it. And then I thought, how are they going to know whether I had the inoculation or not?
Yeah, no.
So I just took it off after a while. Now my son's panicking because he wants me to have the inoculation. I don't want to have it. I'm doing my colloidal silver. I've written enough about it. Oh, should we talk about the book?
Yes, go ahead and talk about the book.
I channeled from all the masters, like I mentioned, Archangel Haniel, and then there's the Brotherhood of Light. There's I'm trying to remember who's in it. Moses, different people all said their point of view, and mostly male, by the way. It's interesting because we come through a male time. And they all said how we can prevent ourselves from being ill and also how to kill the coronavirus. And there's many of coronaviruses. It's just one type that's mutating. But the bottom line is it's sound.
Yeah.
And so people are, and I didn't know this, I was already making sound with my crystal work and so on. So I knew that was happening. And I also know that colloidal silver is another form of crystal from the silver. So it kills it. So I knew that. Well, now, once I started telling that and the book's out and you can read it and see what Spirit says, and it's free and will be free always. And if you want to interpret it into another language, we give you permission as long as you give us a copy. because Katie needs to then put it into a book for people to download in their language free. So, you know, it's up to you. If you feel it's a good book to and want to translate it, we'll be grateful. So coming back to I stop thinking, I've got so many books in my head. The book that, what's it called? The Coronavirus Explained.
Yes.
What you're going to find in there is a lot of insights into the future with how we're dealing with this with sound. And then I talked to some people locally and visitors, and I found out that there are people who've actually made vibrational hypnosis meditations that oscillate with a beep or a sound that you can't hear, but it will kill the virus.
That beat that you're talking. Margaret and I were looking up binary beats to see what was available out there. They haven't yet actually made a binary beat in association with
the virus
itself. And so I did actually find one, but the problem is the frequency that is used is so high pitched. For me, it hasn't bothered me one little bit. I can withstand it.
Well, that's the point. You're not going to hear it, but your body vibrates to it.
No, but I actually did find a frequency that you can actually hear, and it's like 1,100, or it's like 1,100 and something. I've got to look it back up again.
Kilohertz or something, yeah. Okay.
It's a really, really high frequency. But the problem is that one, it's not been actually, there is no binary beats to it. It's not a normal frequency that people would use to meditate to. It's a frequency that is really, really high pitched too. And it's one of those frequencies where you'd be like, ow, you like literally. It's not something that you, if you are not used to something like that, you will get a headache very, very quickly. If you are sensitive in any way, you will get a headache or feel sick. But at the same time, is that when you do listen to this frequency at that high frequency, at that higher frequency, you would do it for like maybe 30 seconds or a minute at a time. It is enough. Doing it for very short bursts for a short amount of time is enough to start the process of shedding those molecular structures of what a virus could be.
Yeah, so I had some other ones as well. People are coming to me about where they're running blood over a machine that's vibrating the blood and clearing the blood, not just from COVID, but from cancer and other things. There's a lot of technology that we, the public, don't know about, because the public, as far as the non-public, I want to say, private people who are in the big pharmacy groups, they block them all.
Yeah,
I've been on the tail end of working with people, and I mean tail end, working with people back in the 80s, 70s even, working with the energies of quartz and copper. And I just remember a flash of many memories that come and go of people who were in those days saying that the oscillation from the combination of copper and quartz would kill most viruses, and they got shut down by the government. See, so I took very quiet, low profile with my crystal work. I didn't want anyone telling me that I couldn't do my research and do my practical stuff on crystal acupuncture and so on. And I'm so happy and thankful to the many, many thousands of people who let me work on them and heal them and yes, really recover. And when you know about the fact, the aura and these 5 bodies and the chakras and the meridians and all this, you can fix yourself. But you don't go to school and learn this. People don't even talk about it in school. So I've got quite a few classes I want to teach on healing, and we can build those as supply and need. But right now, if we don't have anyone even coming onto the show and asking us questions, then we're kind of stupid. You can build a university, but you've got to have some students.
You can always just imagine naked people in Australia, I swear. But no,
You're not going to let me forget that, are you?
no. But no. But the thing is that let's go back for 1 second, back to the actual topic of tonight's show, and that is sabotage. So in we've got 15 minutes left over, and I think we should just briefly speak about providing a solution to somebody who is sabotaging themselves.
Well, we could give her 900 things to do, but the first thought problem is, oh, that's really good. I will do that today.
It is?
Tomorrow, next week, next year, sometime, never. Okay. So if anybody's listening, I would say write this down so you don't forget and do it. Okay, because if you want to first be aware of how you talk. Okay, so deliberately this is an exercise, deliberately set yourself up with something you want to do and deliberately choose someone that you can share it with, that will ask you questions or test you, okay, and watch your responses. Because most of us don't think about, it's like Katie, if you said to me, do you like ice cream? I could be thinking about, I'm really thirsty right now and I want a cup of tea. Okay, and now I've forgotten about ice cream, you see. So what we have to do is tell that person in this exercise, ask questions. What flavor do you like ice cream? Or how often do you eat ice cream? And do you think you're getting fat with ice cream? You want someone to really ask you questions that make you think. And then watch yourself respond with, well, I only eat it like once a week. Well, actually, maybe two. Well, last week I had it 3 times. Hear yourself, processing out loud. And then ask the person afterwards what they thought about your replies and be open and receptive to what they say. And I'll tell you, the first thing they discover when we ask people for opinions is we don't want their opinion.
No, because we're fearful of criticism.
Yeah, exactly. And they're expecting to be put down, in some way. So a general conversation with someone who, and then swap over and do it for them. I want to do these kinds of classes when we're online. Okay, so people can actually, do short versions of these things. So you're hearing yourself and you're seeing yourself protect yourself, basically, by watching. You might even be watching your words. I can't say that word, and when you really want to say that word, okay, or you won't say the word, but you find yourself apologizing about that word. So you have to be your own monitor, watching yourself talking, okay.
And then you have to take a different approach to it. But the one biggest thing is because we are dealing with sabotage and fear and everything under the sun in terms of an emotional negative. We need to let go of all of those negative mindsets that tells us anything and everything, or gives us an excuse to not move forward or not make a positive change or not think outside the box.
Well, you're right, but when we're having our regular everyday conversations, we are not paying attention to how we sound.
No, because
I mean, you just said a whole sentence of 2 or 3 or 4 or 10,
yeah,
and you weren't listening to you, hearing you talking, and that's the point of this exercise. You don't really care anything about your responses. You're hearing you. Okay. Another way I tell people to do it is talk to yourself in the mirror. Watch your face, because we never see our face while we're talking, right? So, like if I said, "Oh, I really, really hate sharks," okay, well, I can see my face here, right? And I do really, really hate sharks because I have nightmares about them gobbling me up when I was young. Okay.
you got too much jaws.
Yes, exactly. So, but I don't see my face, and that was a natural screw up face, But would I want to stand up in public and say, "Okay, I'm going to tell you all about psychic development today"? Do you think they're going to believe me?
I would have thought you were constipated.
So that was hard to do, actually. But I actually do have people do these exercises where I want them to screw up their face, or I want them to laugh when it's serious, and get used to the idea that there's another point of view. Because if you don't hear yourself and you don't see yourself, you don't know what the other people, why are they responding to you?
Yeah, and it's about also taking a different approach to things as well, taking a different perspective, because at the end of the day, our perspective is not going to be is going to be very, very different from the next person's perspective too. And the way that we approach things can be, we tend to approach things from a very uniformed way of approaching things, whereas we don't see the sides, all sides to the story, so to speak, metaphorically. Because when I had someone come to me about, a relationship issue a couple of months ago, actually, they were talking about how a husband and wife was having a fight, and the husband was saying, "Oh, my wife doesn't want to talk to me. We always end up in a fight. I'm trying everything and anything and everything to try and fix it, and I still don't know what the problem is." And I turned around and I said, "Is there a problem, or is it they are coming at the same?" Trying to fix a relationship, coming at the same approach each and every single time, resulting in the same thing each and every single time.
Yeah.
And that's where we can, in future shows on this show especially, we'll be talking about the relationships and that. And so yes, it's another form of sabotage, and that's because we are taking the same approach. It's just like, what's the ultimate definition for insanity?
Well, you know what else you're saying about that, and it's a very important point, is bring it home here, I think, is when you keep trying to patch up a relationship with the same arguments and the same, you always, universal truths. You always don't, you always do, you always, my husband and I were always throwing that word at one another. Stop saying always, because it's very easy to typecast everything down to an always. But, going back to people talking, communicating, if you do change, and I've seen this a lot with my students over time, if they change, the family doesn't want them to change because now they don't know who they are, what they're up to. So they work at making them go back to the person they were before.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people out there that take that approach, and they prefer to be predictable because they know what the reaction or what is going to happen next. And so when we take that's that whole outside of the box approach that I was talking about. It's going outside of the comfort zone in order to live the best life, so that you're not sabotaging yourself, you're not sabotaging your relationships, you're not sabotaging yourself. from being.
Well, in a way, I'm interrupting you again. In a way, you're not sabotaging yourself, but you are sabotaging the people you're walking away from because you're not there doing what they wanted you to do.
Yes.
So they see you as sabotaging. You know, you never get away from all these words that we use because it's either in us or outside of us, going on somewhere around us. And you know, I always thought psychology was, you know, one of the best things I could ever learn.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I learned, it was not. It was so out of date in history. They were still doing lobotomies, you know, and stuff like that, where they drill a hole in the brain and then hit and miss kill a nerve off in your brain and hope you'll just be quiet. And then, because most of the patients ended up imbeciles, you know, so very bad. And I was nursing during that time. But now we've changed it. I mentioned NLP and, you know, all these different things. We've got different ways of, you know, addressing all these issues that we're sort of talking about today. And yet I can go to see a doctor, and if I say to him, I'm having problems, you know, being focused on my mind or something, he will immediately send me to a psychologist who's going to tell me that I am a schizophrenic or something, which is, you know, 100 years ago it was keep knocking my knees on my table. You know, we're not in that time anymore. And they were even, when I was nursing in the mental institutes, 90%, and I'm not exaggerating, 90% of the people who were in there were psychic. Mm-hmm. And they'd been put in there originally a long time prior, before I ever turned up, because they were psychic, and people categorized that as imbecilic, insane, because they're talking to themselves, not to a spirit person. Or they're saying they're going around healing someone, and people are going like, don't touch me, you know, and all this body language that was going on. And I want to address that. All these things about when we get into talking about relationships, you know, you get two people across the room yelling at one another, and they're so focused on the issue, they're not watching the body language, they're not watching their faces, they're not listening to this tone and the sound and the reverberation of their voice and so on. There's a lot we can teach. And what we're asking people to do is just sign up, go to the website, sign up, come on, listen to our talks, get educated, and then find out after a while if you really want to come back and take a class where we really, you know, go into it deeply and change your life. And that's another thing that many people are afraid of, change of life. It's scary.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this show is just a taste of what's to come, because we are. I mean, yes, me and Margaret and I, we're talking very casually about the topics that we are going in much depth in the teachings that we do. And so right now we're just giving you a taste. We're having a conversation. We're inviting people to come along to engage in our conversation on this show, and so that we can give you what the future can hold for the Samaras Education Center, the Soma Fusion Academy, Easy Peasy Solutions, the Universal Christ Church, and of course, you know, we want to teach. This is our life. And in fact, you know, I know for a fact that you know, I think I said it in the last show, that I went to go get my education. Then I wanted to be what I wanted to be, and then when I wanted to be that whatever, therapist, coach, counselor, I ended up wanting to teach it. I'm like, I found my own niche market and wanted to teach. So here I am, putting all of my knowledge and information together along with Margaret, and we're doing what we love.
And of course, you know, every student out there, everybody out there, in other words, let's put it another way, every single person out there is a potential student if they see it in themselves. And as I said, if they're saying, I really want to study psychic or healing or coaching or counseling or any sort of my relationship, whatever it is, we will be doing it. But we can't teach you unless you sign up and come on and ask questions.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're teachers without students until the students realize they're a student without teachers.
Exactly.
And the coming together has to happen. And so we're doing something that is a little, well, we hope we'll be doing something that's a little bit different from the other people teaching online, is that we want to build a university online that hooks into other universities. And it's going to take time and know-how, but we've got to first establish ourselves as people who are teachers. You know, I'm a professor, and I didn't even know I could get tenure. I turned it down. You know, I didn't know anything about being a professor. That was over 15 years ago. So when I finally came back and I asked, well, about 5 years ago now, could I have it after all? And they said, of course you can. You only have to teach for 5 years before you can have tenure. So now I'm going to be looking for tenure online. We need supporters. We need people who had the dream. I'm not the only one with this dream. You had it before. You know, we all had to fit it together in bits and pieces and bring it together and build it. And if universities already are building their courses online with regular teachers that everybody's used to, why can't we build the same thing online with lots of other teachers who are into alternative medicine, integrated medicine, the paranormal, the psychological, the hypnotic, you know, it goes on. There's so much to do with healing yourself, undoing all the DNA and RNA that's negative and building up the ones that are positive can make a big difference. I know I'm a different person for the person I was that died, you know, and came back, and there's lots of people that have died and come back. But I was doing all this work way before I died. I've been doing this since I was born. So I'm 79 this year. So that's 79 years of work, you know. Well, I'm not looking for praise. I'm just saying I wouldn't know what else to do unless I did like you did and do some drawing. Yeah, you should tell her you suddenly became an artist overnight. Yeah,
I
put
have
you on the spot.
my secret talents.
Yes, I got to share it. It was so good. Yeah,
But no,
totally.
I got lots of talents. I just don't go around telling people what my talents are.
Well, maybe in time you'll be able to show how you just doodled and out came these super bits of artwork. And that would be a class, for example.
Exactly.
You know, there's so much we can teach, but we
Yeah.
need the people to ask us, will you teach us this? Supply and demand. It's like, you know, so many people right now, for example, with COVID, they want masks. So people all over the world are making masks. Okay, we want you people watching us to say what you want. Do you want a psychic development class first? Do you want a coaching, counseling, marriage, family class? But what do you want? We need to hear. We need you to write to us on the website. She's put that out, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so you can contact us through Easy Peasy Solutions, Universal Christchurch, and Samaras Education Centre. The websites are up on the screen. You can contact us through the contact form over there, or you can email us directly at Samaras UCC, that's SUMARISUCC @gmail.com.
Yeah, and we mean it. We will read it. We've got people working for us too, and you know, volunteering or helping or whatever. We can always use more. You know, anyone that is interested, if you don't write what you're interested in, then we'll never know,
Yeah,
and we won't be able to give.
Don't write to us to say just hello. Say write to
Yeah.
us. Let us know what you think, what you what you want to learn, and what you're interested in.
Mm, mm,
Also, too, if you are wanting to be a student and you are wanting to be a teacher, there are kind of, well, a student, yes and no, but definitely a teacher. There are rules and guidelines uh, as to what you are, well, not so much what you're teaching, but your background. And so we want to know that you are at least a verifiable teacher, not just someone that can talk, like I mentioned earlier. As for students who are going through ministerial courses with UCC or Universal Christchurch, there are guidelines, and you can find those guidelines up on the website themselves. For the Universal Christchurch, you can just go over to the ministerial pages. It will tell you what the guidelines are for the acceptance of having a student study the ministerial courses that we have.
mm. And, in a nutshell, what she's really saying is be counted as an upright citizen. If you've got a bit of a nasty, dark background, we may have to look at that in detail. So we do ask you to bare your soul when we connect with you, because we want people to know this is 100% commitment to teaching that they want to do. We don't want people to just do one class and disappear. We want them to have more empathy and sympathy that motivates them to do another class and another class, because followers are coming for them. Because we understand that, people will like one person more than another, and they like the way they teach, and so they want to be with that person.
And it's not just about the process of being taught or learning. It's also about the healing process that comes with it, because obviously we are teaching alternative therapy, we are teaching psychic abilities or psychic development, we are teaching you ministerial courses that within the church. And so there are huge amounts for personal growth, personal healing, and not just learning. So we've got to kind of think out of the side of the box a little bit.
Yeah, I've been teaching in different countries for years, and because there was no standards, nothing anywhere, I actually evolved under Universal Christchurch, my school, so I was Education Centre, to give diplomas. You've got a couple on your wall behind you as well, so people can see that. Have a look. She's been busy studying with me. Very good. So yeah, and all over the world as well, because where I've gone, I've been doing that. And when my husband was alive, he was my partner, and we did the best that we could relative to the times and the ways and the means. But this dream has always been there, to have this university. And thanks to Katie, who's a whiz kid, I love her dearly, and she's come into my life and shown me that my original dream is possible. So thank you. And thank you to anyone out there who wants to join us, because we don't see ourselves as, we're holding the egg, but we need it to hatch, right? And someone out there will help us somehow. So if, in any way, shape or form, if you've been downloading from the oneness that you feel you have to get involved with, teaching online, and or even if you're not a teacher but you want to be a student, or even if you're not that, you want to be a helper, we're open to anyone that really wants to move on with us. And given time, we'll even do conferences and things. We'll have people come together, and we'll have practicals, because we won't have COVID to worry about anymore, so you'll be able to be with us face to face. We've got big plans, but we need your help.
Exactly. With that said, what's next week's topic? I know you had it written down.
I don't know. It's in
I'll find out. I'll put out a promo too. So for those who are listening to the show, please remember that you can find us up on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. Is there any other ones? Twitter. Twitter's the other one I'm missing. There's so many platforms out there. It's not funny.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just blew my mind when you showed, just for your radio show and all the things you put out. It's just so much I don't understand enough.
Soma Fusion Media can be reached on 27 thus platforms. Can be heard, well, this show in particular can be heard on 27 platforms. Some of them are live, some of them are podcasted and recorded and put up within 24 hours of broadcasting. And that goes for all of the shows on Soma Fusion Media that I have. I currently have, I think, 8 or 9 shows now on Soma Fusion Media. I've got another one coming in as well. Not sure when that's going to start, but hopefully it may. We've got a couple of schedule changes and stuff, so trying to deal with that right now with the scheduling, but it's all good. Remember that we are partnered. We have a partnership with iEvolveTV. They're our newcomers right now. You can find those guys at iEvolveTV.com. They have a YouTube channel. Go over there. Go subscribe as well to them because they've got some beautiful shows over there as well. You can also go over to the websites. Again, it's up on the screen. It's www.askdrmargaret.com, easypeasysolutions.org. I know there's a spelling mistake up on the screen, but that's okay. I will correct you. It's easypeasysolutions.org, not .com. universalchristchurch.com and the Samaras Education Center.com. That's center with an ER, American spelling if you are overseas. Oh, yeah. And if you need to contact us directly, please go over to samarisucc@gmail.com. That's Samaris, SUMARISUCC@gmail.com.
I'm so glad you had to say all that, not me.
That's my little promo for the second there.
Yeah.
So, please go check out Margaret's books. There are multiple pages up on Facebook. There's Ask Dr. Margaret, Easy Peasy Solutions, the Universal Christ Church, the Samaras Education Center, and Margaret's got a show also, her own radio show, Journey into an Unknown World. You can find that up on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Dr. Margaret Speaks. You can find that show up there, or you can go over to the Facebook page, Dr. Margaret Speaks, as well.
Yeah. See what a lovely woman she is. She has me in her hands. I'm safe.
I'm not reading a thing. I just remember this off the top of my head. And not only that, if you are interested in everything that I'm doing, you can go over to soma-fusion.com and somafusionmedia.com for all showtimes, schedules, and everything else in between.
Yeah. So on that note, I want to say thank you for helping me get out there and do all this, and thank you to anyone who's listening. If you're going to contact us, we will much appreciate it, and if you feel like sharing it, we appreciate that too. Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, I think people should be able to share their stories and what their interests are with us. That way it can give us a gauge as to what people are interested in and what we could, be teaching in the future anyway.
Yeah. So this is our little bit of a beginning. It's not our major cut the ribbon and hey, we're in business. We're warming up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I will want to point out that I do appreciate Mind Valley. They are doing a lot of TED Talks. I wish I was on the TED Talk. I'd love to do a TED Talk, but I don't even know.
I will be with you because you and I are going to put our little applications in very soon.
Are we? Oh, okay. But I was just thinking that they're doing a wonderful job bringing all the people together. And people are teaching online, but there's no cohesiveness. I was looking for.
And that's because a lot of, and I think it's ego back too. Is the fact that we all want to teach, and where there's this big competition as to who can teach better. It becomes
no, we can't have that with anyone. Everybody's
not how it should be. Should be. There's no two courses that are exactly the same, and so those people who are teaching out online and there, it does become very, very competitive. However, we don't have a competitive stance to the stuff that we're teaching.
I wouldn't know. I haven't really studied with anyone because I'm that.
Yeah, but I mean, because we love teaching, not because we're being competitive to
Yeah,
person.
no. But I just put that out because they're doing a lot of good. But, there's also people out there who are doing just their own thing, one-on-one. With just their one topic. But we need to bring them together. That's why we're saying we're here, to bring people together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, with that note, we got to bid you, all of our listeners, adieu.
Adieu.
And until next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 4 p.m. Mountain Arizona time or Pacific time. We will be back on air with another topic. I will put out the promo for that as soon as we got the topic, and I will promote it. And of course, until then, you got any final words, Margaret?
No, I'm just saying thank you for listening and thank you for sharing, and do take advantage of all our free stuff because there's loads of free stuff between us. Yeah,
exactly. But until then, we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.